Hey, what's going on, everyone? And welcome to episode 45 of the Alec Walt Show. I'm your host, Alec Walt, alongside another very special guest. And today, we're talking about Major League Baseball. Today, we've set the American League wild card. The New York Yankees will visit the Boston Red Sox on Tuesday night to determine who will play the Tampa Bay Rays. And joining me to preview that matchup is Hank Indictor, the host of Hitting for the Cycle on Review and Preview Sports. Hank, welcome to the show, man. I really appreciate you joining me.
Of course, Alec, thanks as always for having me. Really excited to talk some baseball with you. And I'm still kind of recovering from being at that crazy 1-0 pitcher's duel of a game. But as you know, I am looking forward to what should be a crazy Yankees versus Red Sox matchup. And, it's amazing. Our fan bases talk at each other back and forth all season long. We both finished with the exact same amount of wins. Now it all comes down to that one playoff game. It's not quite as exciting as, the last two winner-go-home games between the Yankees and Red Sox. I'm, of course, talking about the Aaron Boone game and, of course, another game that I'm sure you have very fond memories of, October 20th, 2004. Johnny Damon hit a grand slam. I don't want to continue talking about that game. That gives me bad memories. But in any event, I'm really excited. And, I think this is one of those games where we really see if Garrett Cole is the pitcher that we shelled out all that money for,
Yeah, so just real quick before we talk about that specific matchup, the Red Sox at one point were trailing 5-1 to the Washington Nationals before they stormed back from the sixth inning on. In the ninth inning, a huge two-run bomb by Rafael Devers to make it 75 to secure that first American League wildcard spot. The Yankees were on pace to get swept by the Tampa Bay Rays today in the ninth inning. Aaron Judge hit a walk-off single that led to a 1-0 victory that you were mentioning before. It must have been pretty cool to go to that game. Were you worried at some point they were going to, it just took forever for some sort of offense to get put on the board today?
Oh my gosh, I was totally worried. The Yankees, for the most part in that game, the bats were silent. They had one hit for the majority of the game too. And the Rays had multiple opportunities with runners in scoring position. You had one moment where there was the ball hit very hard. It was headed towards the outfield. Glaber makes a diving play at second, throws the guy out. That turned out to be critical because it would have made it. It would have been 2-0 because you had runners on second and third. That probably would, with the way the Yankees offense is going, that probably was the game right there. And there were other chances. Seventh and eighth inning, the Rays had runners on second base at least once in the inning. Didn't get that run home. And if you look at a lot of the games the Yankees have played this year, in a lot of these tight games, the Yankees lose games like that too. They've been in a lot of one-run games they lost. So yeah, I was extremely worried. But then for Judge, the real decision that surprised me was when Judge came up, there was a guy on second and third, one out. I thought for sure the Rays were going to walk Judge intentionally because you had Stanton up. And if you've watched the Yankees all season long, I'm going to go on a limb and say they've probably led the league in most ground ball double plays they've hit into this year. So with one out in that inning and Giancarlo up, and don't get me wrong, Giancarlo's been clutch a lot of times this year. He's just as successful to hitting into a double play. So I was very shocked they pitched to Judge, but nonetheless, he hits a ground ball to second. We're lucky that Tyler Wade was running because Tyler Wade's by far, I don't know if I say by far, he's definitely one of the faster Yankees on the team. He makes it in safely. Yankees end up winning, and I don't know if I was more elated than I was relieved because that was a game, as I said, the Yankees have lost on numerous occasions this year when not getting enough runs. So I'm taking it and running with it. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, obviously, in this matchup in Boston, you guys are penciling in Garrett Cole, like you mentioned earlier in the show. But against the Boston Red Sox, we've seen almost two different versions of Cole, one in Fenway Park and one in Yankee Stadium. In Boston, back on June 27th, 5 innings, 8 hits, 6 runs, 5 earned, 6 strikeouts. Back on July 23rd, 5 innings pitched, 6 hits, 3 runs, all 3 earned, and 8 strikeouts. And then finally on September 24th, 6 innings, 5 hits, 3 runs, and 6 strikeouts. So again, not terrible games, but the Red Sox have been able to find a way to put some runs up on Garrett Cole when he's come to Boston.
Yeah, and I think the reason for that probably is because, we're division rivals. who are the Red Sox going to be more familiar with? Obviously, it would be teams like, say, the Yankees and the Rays. And with Garrett Cole being the ace, you'd have to think that they'd watched a lot of film, or you'd have to think that the Red Sox have been able to adjust to his pitches. And, I think that's probably one of the big reasons why he's had kind of success this year. But with that being said, can throw that all out the window, because at the end of the day, it's a 1-game playoff. And while I'm still nervous about what we're going to get with Garrett Cole, because if you watch his last start against the Toronto Blue Jays, he did not look good. Gave up at least 1 run, maybe the first 3-4 innings of that game. And he put the Yankees in an early hole, which they almost came back for. And they almost won that game. They tied it up, but then, you had Bo Bichette hitting the home run in the 8th inning. And what also should be worth noting, though, is that one of those runs wasn't really his fault, because Joey Gallo misplayed a fly ball in that game. But the real question is, which Garrett Cole are we going to get? And, while I am somewhat nervous based on his past performances, he's also pitched in a lot of these big games before too. Let's not forget that. I would definitely not rule out the possibility of him going in and pitching a dominant game. But of course, there's as I said, there's an awful lot of pressure on him because, as I mentioned, a big contract, $300 million, this is where he's got to earn it.
Yeah, and on the flip side, the Red Sox will be throwing out what's looking like Nathan Eovaldi, who looked great in his last start, of course, against the Baltimore Orioles, but the start before that was against the New York Yankees. And yes, this game was, I believe, in Boston, and for a team like the Red Sox that was looking for a quality start out of Eovaldi in that matchup as a preview for what to expect here in this wild card, it was one of the worst starts of the season for Nathan Eovaldi. He finished with 2 2/3 inning pitch, 7 hits, 7 runs. All 7 of them were earned. 0 strikeouts, picking up the loss. I mean, yes, I know you mentioned it before. Throw the records out the door. These teams are familiar with each other, which is why you see some of these, blow-up games here every once in a while. But, as a Yankees fan, you must be sitting here the last time we saw Eovaldi, we took him, and it didn't matter where it was located because it's in the location of the place we're playing on Tuesday night.
Right. Exactly. And, Nathan Eovaldi was a guy who I admitted, also had me a bit nervous, because I've also seen many games where he's dominated the Yankees. And I think one reason we know why is because this guy was a former Yankee himself, and one that Brian Cashman let go unceremoniously. And I don't need to dive into what he did during the 2018 postseason. He pretty much literally and figuratively saved the Red Sox in that World Series, especially their bullpen. But again, with that having been said, I think the reason the Yankees may have been able to beat him that time around at Fenway, because remember, as I mentioned, the Yankees had faced him before, their division rivals. And I think that time the Yankee hitters were just able to adjust. This time they kind of knew what was coming, and whether that translates into the wild card game, who knows? But I'd like to think that, with the similar lineup from what we had the last time around, maybe it works in their favor. Who knows?
So one thing I think is going to be a massive determining factor in who wins this game is the bullpen. I think you and I both look at it. We have both our best starting pitchers on the mound at the moment. For your case, Garrett Cole. For my case, Nathan Eovaldi. But after that, who's going to make sure they don't blow it? And when I look at the Red Sox bullpen right now, one thing that Alex Cora did today was he used a lot of his starters in bullpen roles. He didn't pitch Adam Ottavino, Matt Barnes. He did give Garrett Whitlock an inning or so today. You look at the Yankees right now, Loaiza's back, Aroldis Chapman's back. Both of them did pitch today in a must-win situation for the New York Yankees. But, say Garrett Cole goes 7, Loaiza, Chapman, whatever it looks like, you're going to go in the back of your bullpen. How confident are you in what the Yankees can do planning against this Red Sox lineup to prevent the Red Sox from possibly coming back and winning a game like they did today and multiple times here in the regular season?
I feel a little bit better than I did when last we spoke a couple weeks ago, previewing the 3-game set at Fenway Park. And the reason being is, well, for one thing, Monday's an off day. Everybody's getting an extra day of rest. So I think that might be another reason why Alex Cora did what he did. This is just a speculation on my part. I'm not 100% sure. But, You now, in addition to having Jonathan Loaisiga, let's not forget, Luis Severino came back in late September, and it felt like they got a much needed boost to that bullpen because while we know we're used to seeing him as a starter, he has been absolutely clutch in relief situations this year. So maybe we see him getting some length in that game. I wouldn't surprise me. As you mentioned, Jonathan Loaisiga is back, and he got them out of a jam situation in the 7th inning, and he did the same thing in the 8th inning. He has been absolutely lights out when it comes to Yankees relievers, probably the best of them all season, if I'm being honest. Then there's Chad Green, who, as I've mentioned, is very up and down. You really don't know what you're going to get from him. There are some nights where he'll be dominant. He'll be one of our better relief pitchers, but then you also never know when he's going to give up a home run this year. And unfortunately, he's giving up like 15 to 16 home runs this year. So really, I don't know if I want to see him coming into a game with it being on the line. But then Chapman, as I've often said, he has got filthy stuff. I will probably be nervous one way or another when he comes into the game because when Aroldis Chapman comes into the game, it really hinges on that fastball. If that fastball is not working, then you're in trouble. But when he's on, he is absolutely nasty and unhittable. So I feel somewhat good about the bullpen, but I'm not 100% confident. But it's a winnable bullpen. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at the Red Sox right now, I'm very happy to see they were able to give their bullpen pieces rest as well as picking up the win today. I think the Red Sox would be screwed if Chris Sale only pitched the amount of innings he pitched today to having to play a 163 and then play a wild card game. Of course, with you guys winning, it would have been the situation if the Red Sox lost today, but good for them to get some rest. Those guys definitely need it. The Red Sox do have some blow-up potential there in their bullpen. They've shown it for most part of the season, but remember, guys like Hansel Robles, Adam Ottavino, who the Yankees are very familiar with, and Matt Barnes all did not pitch today. If Eovaldi pitches 6 or 7 innings, you have to expect those are likely the arms he's going to move. Don't forget about Tanner Houck as names that are options after Nathan Eovaldi in the wild card game against the New York Yankees. Let's talk about injuries here. First, we're going to start with the Boston Red Sox. Jd Martinez was running to his defensive position in right field, tripped over second base, is dealing with a sprained left ankle. It's still uncertain if he will play in the wild card game. Of course, you look at the Red Sox lineup here, Hank. Jd Martinez, one of the most experienced hitters on this team, one of the best hitters in baseball when he's healthy, has cooled off a little bit towards the end of the season, but if Jd Martinez is not in the lineup for the Red Sox, that is a huge loss in the middle of the order. They'll still be able to make up with it because I think Dalbec will start at first base, Kike in center, Renfroe and Verdugo in the corner, Schwarber at DH, but that also takes a big piece off your bench if Schwarber was to be in that pitch hit role. Of course, you don't have Jose Iglesias now. You do have Christian Arroyo, but one thing the Red Sox fans are going to have to keep an eye on in this series is what's going to happen with JD, because that's not someone you don't want to have in the lineup in a must-win game.
Yeah, no, we have some injury scenarios as well. 2 of them have really ruined our hitting depth for starters. Well, we already lost Luke Voit. Luke Voit hadn't really been playing much for like a lot of the second half, and I really never quite got why, but it turned out he was dealing with some like knee problems, and it really begs the question, why did they pinch hit for him in that game against the Toronto Blue Jays? Maybe they were trying to hide it. I don't know, but I really think they kind of mismanaged Luke Voit, and I really wish this was a guy that had more chance to be a designated hitter down the stretch. But I can give you other reasons as to why I haven't been too happy with Aaron Boone, but that's one of them. But that is a discussion for another day. But the killer injury for the Yankees right now is DJ LeMahieu. He has just been placed on the 10-day IL with, I believe it was a sports hernia, which we knew he was going to be a ticking time bomb too, because it was discovered in September that he was playing with some like hip soreness, and you knew the hip wasn't too good to him. And then when he left in the Blue Jays game in the 7th inning, you couldn't have been feeling too good because it was a little too early for them to be using a defensive replacement. Like, as decent as Tyler Wade is, he's an okay fielder, but speed's his biggest asset. You didn't want him in the game that early, and for him to be in there, you knew something was wrong with DJ, and sure enough, it was worse than the hip. It was the sports hernia, and it just felt like an injury with DJ was kind of inevitable. And I think the problem with his hip may have been one of the bigger reasons why he's been hitting at what was an uncharacteristically low batting average. He was right around like 270 for most of the season, and he was hitting into a lot of double plays, and everyone was saying, "Oh, DJ's been the problem. He's been like a product of the juice balls." No, I've seen some clips of him from when he was with the Rockies. I know he's a naturally good hitter. I don't think a good player doesn't just go down like that without some injury happen. And now I think we pretty much know what it was.
Would you stick with this order in this upcoming game with Torres at the top of the lineup, with Rizzo, Judge, Stanton, Gallo in your top 5? How would you construct your lineup? No LeMahieu there towards the top of the order. You're Aaron Boone. Tell me what you would do without LeMahieu there in this must-win game.
I mean, unfortunately, I don't think you really have a choice but to put Glaber near the top of the lineup because, as I said, now your infield depth took a big hit with the loss of DJ LeMahieu. And now you still have other sluggers in there, but I would probably balance it out by putting I would probably put Anthony Rizzo in between like Judge and Stanton, just so that you could get like a lefty bat in between the two righties. But with that being said, I think for the most part, the lineup's going to be probably what I expect. I would imagine Stanton's probably going to hit after Judge anyways, which isn't necessarily a bad option, but my thinking is I'd like to see a lefty in between like the two righties because gives them a little balance. And Gallo's probably going to be hitting like 5th or 6th. Gallo's a guy who you can trust to hit a lot of home runs, but I think by far the most 3 different result hitter you can get in the lineup. And by three different results, I think you obviously know what I'm talking about. Strikeouts, walks, or home runs. Usually it's not anything else.
All right. What is your prediction for how you see this American League wildcard game playing out?
I'm not going to say it with 100% confidence, but I'm going to say it's going to be a really close game. It's not going to be a blowout that it was Friday night when you had the same pitchers, presuming that you guys throw Uvalde out there for the wild card game.
I mean, who are they going to throw out? Like, because they pitched all the other ones today.
No, right. That's what I'm saying. I know, that's my point.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'm going to say 5-4 Yankees. Somebody's going to probably get a clutch home run because if you know the Yankees and getting clutch hits, it usually happens with a home run. Chapman gets a guy on first and second, one up. Somehow he finds a way to get out of it scot-free.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at this series right now, the Red Sox are coming in with a little more momentum than the Yankees. The Yankees came off a really tough series against the Tampa Bay Rays, and let's be real here. I don't think the Yankees' confidence is too high right now, and they really haven't scored that many runs lately. Yes, I do think having Garrett Cole on the mound is a huge confidence boost for the Yankees, but I do think this game at Fenway Park is going to give the Red Sox a huge advantage. They swept the Nationals yesterday, which isn't saying much, but they are going into this game winning 3 in a row, giving their bullpen a ton of rest while the Yankees are coming in on a brutally tough series against the team that I think has the chance to go back to the World Series in the American League. So I do think it'll be tough. I don't see either of these two pitchers giving up a ton of runs like you mentioned before. I'm not going to go much further off of your prediction. I'm going to go 4-3 Boston. I really hope that these guys can last here at the end of the game. But like I mentioned before, I think bullpens are going to have a huge factor in how this game plays. Specifically with the Yankees, you guys have Loizaga Chapman, who you pitched in your matchup today against the Tampa Bay Rays. The Red Sox, of course, went with more of a rest approach, but those guys should be available at the end of the game, and it should be an exciting matchup Tuesday night in Boston, Massachusetts. Hank, before I let you walk, how can our listeners listen to your podcast and keep in touch with you and all your pages on social media?
All right. So for starters, you can follow Hitting for the Cycle on wherever you can find your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, etc., the works. But you can also find us on Facebook Live. We go live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. And you can be sure that this week I am going to be going in great depth about the wildcard game. I will give you a very happy recap or a very disappointing one, but I will also be covering the other series between the Dodgers and the Cardinals. That should be a good one. I would imagine Andy Hopper will probably be joining me for that as well. And you can find us at Review and Preview Sports. And as I mentioned, we go live on Facebook at 7 p.m. Wednesdays, and You could also find our episodes on the YouTube channel at Reviewed Preview Sports, and you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, pretty much all the forms of social media. And of course, you can also find me going live on Thursday nights at 7 with Tom Scavetta and Sam Cardona for Big Blue Avenue. That is another show of Review and Preview. And in addition, if you want to find me on social media, you can find me at, I believe it's Ranger Hanky 96 on Twitter, and then Rangers Yanks some sort of numbers on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, Hank, thank you very much for joining me today on the Alec Walt Show.
No problem, Alec. It's always a pleasure. Thanks for having me again.
All right, quick programming note here on Down the Block Sports. We are going to have more baseball content. We're not just going to talk to Hank Indictor. We're also going to talk to Kevin Wheeler from KMOX Radio in St. Louis to preview the National League Wild Card. We're also going to have Matt Atkins, the host of the Foul Ball Area podcast, as well as my good friend at MLB Network Radio. So we have a ton of baseball content coming right here on Down the Block Sports. So if you have not yet, feel free to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more of my exclusive content. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in here on this podcast. We will see you very soon.